Yelena?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey, I don't know why that started.
Did I star one again and stop it?
I think so.
All right, try this. Doesn't like that. Okay, well, we're starting at 4 minutes, so we can just wait.
Okay, I think people can hear us, but I'll just share your screen and all right, hi everybody. Welcome to our April CloudBytes. We're just going to give it a few more minutes just to let people join and excuse the screen. We're just kind of setting up some additional stuff, but we'll get started in about 30 seconds. All right, Jim, I'm going to kind of start the intro if you want to go to the main screen. I'm not sure why it's showing this one, but anyway, hi everybody. Thanks for joining us today for our April CloudBytes. This is Yelena Subasic with Massey, and Jim Stubanas will be presenting today. Again, thanks for joining us. And before we get started, just as a reminder, GoToWebinar provides the chat box to your right. So at any point in the presentation, if you have a question, please feel free to type it in and we'll address all questions at the end and take any additional ones. So with that, Jim, if you want to go ahead and take it away.
Okay, thank you, Yelena. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about using the aging report that's available out of the report writer for those customers who may not be getting all of the details they want either out of the accounts payable or the accounts receivable report in the module. I will be working with the ad hoc report writer. And for those people who work in Intacct, who have been working in it for some time, you'll see that my screen looks slightly different. This display that you see on my screen is now referred to as the new or the Action UI. And because this old one is going to go away, and because we all need to get familiar with the new one, I'm going to work with this. I do on occasion fumble. So what I'd like to do as I get started here is I'd like to talk about what my objectives are for this meeting. This is pretty much a session to teach people how to write a report, and we're going to use the accounts receivable aging report table from the ad hoc report writer as an example of writing that. I'm going to talk about the differences between the tables. We're going to build a sample report from scratch. I'm going to show you how to add it to the dashboard and also how to memorize reports. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is how you get to these data tables. If you are using platform services, you'll see it listed here under platform services, and you have down here under the report section, you can manage and add reports. This takes you back to the old UI, which is slated for upgrade at some point, but this might look more familiar to you. If you don't see platform services on your menu, it'll be referred to as customization services. So you should be able to look for one or the other, okay? And then to add a new report, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, and I'm going to just say add. What you should see is a step one. This is a what you see is what you get type report writer. It has several steps that we're going to walk through. I'm going to describe each of them. The most important thing in writing a report is to know in advance what you want to get from that report. What I recommend to customers that they do if they're going to write a report and it involves some detail is maybe sketch it out on a piece of paper or put it in Excel. You're going to want to think about things like the fields that you want, calculations that might be involved, maybe sorting, possibly some totaling. And I'm going to show you how to do each of those as we move through this presentation. The next thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to know exactly what table should you be working from, because each of these tables gives something different. As a rule, what you will see, I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to talk about the customer aging report, is you'll notice it's probably a little hard to read. There's 3 different tables or catalog items here referring to aging. I've gone through each of these for the purpose of learning how to build a custom aging report. I'll just save you some time and some hunting around and tell you that you're probably going to want the customer aging report. In fact, the other 2 do not have the aging buckets. So if you can't do the aging, and most of us already know that Intacct doesn't do date math right now in its current iteration, then for an aging report, you're going to want customer aging report so that you get those aging buckets. Now, while we're on that topic, I do want to point out before you start your report, the issue of how does Intacct do its aging. For those of you that might not have been involved in the setup, the aging for both the accounts payable and the accounts receivable is under the setup screen. So if I go over here, let's go find there, for instance, is our accounts receivable. And I'm going to click to all on our action bar here. And I'll scroll down here to our setup under configuration. If you scroll way down to the bottom, you will see an opportunity to set various different aging buckets. So here's one right here. It also allows you to have 2 others in case you want to have different flavor of aging buckets. Some people might do 0 to 10, 11 to 20, 10-day increments. Other people traditionally 0 to 30, 31, 60, 61, 90, that type of thing. You can set up 3 different aging buckets, and these will all be available in Intacct. So that's where you want to edit these if you don't like the aging buckets that are available. Okay, so when we start this report, the first thing we're going to do is go get the right report for this, and I'm just going to scroll down and get that customer aging. And I can either click my right arrow, or I can just pull down my next selection. And what this is going to do is this is going to show me all of the fields that are available in this report catalog that I can choose from. So this is a pretty straightforward example because we're looking for aging periods, which we can see right there along the top. And then we're probably going to be looking for some customer information. This aging report actually has the line detail. So if you go to write a report in Intacct, one of the things that you should ask yourself in advance is, do I just need the header information? And when I say header, I refer to the customer number, the document number, date, due date, total, things that you would see at the top of a document, maybe a little bit of subtotal down the bottom, or do I want to see the line detail as well? Keep in mind that if you go in and typically you run a report that has the line, it also includes the header information as well. If you run a report that's just header information, you'll never be able to get to the lines. So that leads me to the next consideration when you're writing reports. When you write a report and you've sketched out the detail that you want, you're going to want to spend some time putting the report together in a rough draft, just to make sure that you're getting the right data. Don't spend a lot of time prettying up the columns and changing the wording and trying to make it look really nice until you have determined that you are in fact running out of the right report table, because you might spend a lot of time with cosmetics only to find out that, hey, this particular table doesn't have that field that I need. Now I need to start from scratch. Once you've determined that the data, that you're in the right table drawing your data, I also recommend that any report that you run, take the time to compare it to the Intacct data to make sure you're getting the right information. Otherwise, you might come up with some surprises. If, for instance, I'm putting a report together for aging, I might want to take the time to check a customer record on the stock Intacct aging report, make sure they agree. So why would we go and write this report versus running the standard report out of Intacct for AR aging? This report gives you a lot more detail that you can't get from the standard Intacct AR aging. In fact, we have line level detail. We can go down to each individual dimension on the line level if we want to see that.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. Are you showing this on your screen? Because we just see the custom report wizard screen.
I can bring the PowerPoint over if you'd like, but I'm pretty much just discussing the narrative.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were seeing the right thing. That's fine.
Okay. I'll bring this over so people can see what I'm referring to. How's that? All right.
Perfect.
All right. And then once you have the, what I was saying is the custom report writer is going to give you access to fields that you couldn't get out of the regular report. If the regular report works fine, you wouldn't be here in the first place. Okay. So once you have determined what you want on your sketch, you know where your base data is to check against, and you know that you're in the right table, then you're ready to start writing your report. So I'm going to go over to the report writer, and I'm going to build out a report, and I'm going to talk about the various different sections of this report and how it would work for you. So the very first part we have here are the aging buckets. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick these. And then notice that it gives me the line detail. So you can choose whether you want to see the line detail of each of the invoices or just the header information, which is a little further down here in the report writer. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the amount, and I probably want the customer ID, probably I would say a document number, document type, maybe a due date. Nice thing to have on here is GL posting date. Many times when people run a report, they come back and they say, my aging report doesn't tie out to my general ledger. For those of you who have run the stock AR aging report, you'll note there's a button there to choose either aging by invoice date or by GL posting date. So if you run it by the posting date, in most cases you'll find that it ties out to your general ledger. Just a little tip. If we want to see the terms code, we can choose that, and then we might want to choose the transaction amount, and we've got our amount right here. So this would give us a report of every invoice in the system with the customer information, the basic header information. If we should choose to go down to the line level, we could then dip into this aging line detail and pick off some details. Now, I'm going to eventually take this report and I'm going to sort it by customer because I typically look at my aging by customer. And then I'm going to sort it by document. And then if I'm going to look at it at the line level, chances are I want to just sort it by the line number. So I'm going to need that one. Notice there's some really good stuff in here that isn't available in the typical aging report. I've got my dimensions, so I've got class. If I was doing contract work, I could get a contract ID. I've got my customer ID. That should be the same as your header, okay? Projects. So you've got a lot of good stuff down here that you wouldn't normally see. I've had customers ask to see this report at the line level, and they want to see the GL distributions as well. So here, in this particular case, I would go and I would pick up my account number, okay, right there. And if I haven't memorized my chart of accounts, I might want to go down here and go find my GL account and get my title. So down here, I've got a title. Now, what's kind of funny about these tables is they are not always in alphabetical order. Sometimes you'll see they're in a kind of a strange order. So a little tip, if you're trying to find something quickly, is you can use Control F in your browser And if you want to find, for instance, something about project, just type that in, and it'll highlight for that section of the table that you have open each instance of the word project. Makes it a little easier to find the information. And you notice as I scroll through here, there's a lot of detail in here that isn't on the regular aging report. When you're done searching on that word, I recommend closing it because that coloration is going to come up on every page that you move through. All right. Once we picked our columns, we're going to go to the next step. And keep in mind, if you miss something, you can always come back and you can check those columns again by using your back button here, not your back browser button, or you can just pull down and choose from your menu this way. Now, one of the things I like to do is to make sure that my numbers are always correct. So here, we're going to just go and we're going to add up our aging columns. This gives us the ability to do some simple arithmetic: add, divide, multiply, subtract. As I mentioned, it doesn't do any date math currently. We do have a new report writer coming out sometime this year, so watch out for that. And you also have the ability to nest your calculation. You have some parentheses there. So I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to add and pick up my next aging bucket, and I'm going to add, and then this guy, add that, 60, and then 91, and I've got them all. Okay, I want to take off that last one. If you do something wrong and you try to save it, it will tell you that something's wrong and you'll have to go find out where your calculation's wrong. So I'm going to say total aging amount. There we go. Keep in mind that in order to do the calculations, the fields that you want to use in the calculation have to be selected from the previous screen. After you build the calculation, if you don't want those to show for whatever reason, you can go back and uncheck them. So I've got a calculated column here, my total aging. And the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to decide how do I want these columns to appear. Notice that what it has done is all the columns that I picked, it's put them here in this screen, and I can take each one and I can move them around in the order that I want. So I want to see this, for instance, by customer ID, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drag my aging buckets down. You can just grab them anywhere that you can get a hold of the text and pull it down. There we go. There's a 30 and there's a 00. Why is it like that? Well, Intacct always wants a 0 bucket in case you have some credits. And there's that total, because I'm going to want to check that. And I've got my customer ID, and I'm going to get my document number, my type of document here, and I want to show my GL date or my GL amount. So let's go ahead and move some of these around a little bit. Term code, we've got due date, class, here's my line. Okay. And I'm going to put this total down here somewhere. I might want to get rid of that, but we're going to leave it there. So what we've got here is a report with each of the fields titled as Intacct calls them on the screen. One of the things you'll find out is you might start running out of real estate on your report because your titles are too long or you don't like the titles. So you can always come in here and maybe I just want to call this Stock Now. Or maybe I want to change this to type. So you can always rename these to anything that you want. I might take this and call it GL number. You can customize them any way that you want. If you miss a field and need to go back, you can go back to add columns and grab something new and it will appear. It's going to drop down to the bottom, but you can add it and then move it around later on. So I'm going to go next. And since this is an aging report, I'm probably going to want it to do some totaling for me. So I'm just going to go ahead and say sum. And this is going to take all the numeric data and it's going to add them up. And remember, I did a total of all of the totals, so I'm going to sum up this one as well because I wanted to make sure it flips. So I've got some nice computational capabilities here. In my experience, typically I'm doing sums or some type of total. When we go next, then I get to where I can sort my output. This is just going to display the fields as he chose them. And for me, typically, I like to take my fields and organize them in the order that I'm going to want them totaling. In this particular case, I'm going to say customer, and I'm going to need a document number, so I'm going to put that up there. It wants to go up there. And because I might be displaying the line detail, I'm going to do the line detail of each document next. So this is going to sort my report by customer number, then by my document. I might want to do it on due date, maybe. And then I'm going to do it by line. So you have a lot of sort capabilities there. And then here, if I have any reason that I want to sort out or filter this report, I can set filters here. Why would I do that? If, for instance, my report gives me documents that have a zero balance, I probably don't want to see them. So I might set a filter that says where document due equals 0. That way it'll filter them. I might have a reason to sort where I know that I'm only looking to filter on a select customer group. So you've got a number of sort capabilities here. I'm going to leave those go for right now. And now I come to my grouping. So the example here gives a good example of how you would group your data. We know this is an AR aging report, and we're sorting it by customer. So we probably want to sort it or group it by customer, and maybe further group it by our document number. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to grab my customer number. Sometimes you have to kind of hunt around for these. There's my customer ID. And I might want to also try to find my document number. So I'm on my aging line. Let's see if we have a doc number here. So we don't have a document number. I might have to go down to, for instance, my document aging header and find my invoice number. Here we go, document number. So this is going to take this report and group it by my customer, further group it by document, and total it up on each. As we progress through here, it sees that we've done some grouping. We did some sorting further back, but when you do this grouping, it's also going to ask you how you want to sort your groups. I want to do my customer, so I'm going to just set them to the same sorting as I did on my individual records. And here's some really good stuff. We can set defaults for the report so that when we run them, it's coded in the right method that we wanted to report. Earlier, I mentioned about GL posting date. I always like to see this by the posting date, so I can tie out to my general ledger. If you're using multi-currency, you want to decide whether you want it in the base currency for your entity or whether you want to see it in the transaction currency. And then here, show detail. We talked about showing those lines and doing groupings. Do we want to suppress that line level detail when we run the report, or do we want to show it? So if I say yes, this is going to break out each individual line. If I say no, it's going to compress it into a group, but I can always expand it out if I want. So it's just a matter of preference and also a function of how much data you have displayed in your report if you're just looking at it, whether you want to see that data or not. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that wide open so I can see all my details. Step 12 has to do with charts, so I'm not doing a chart today, so I'm going to skip that. And then here, for my additional prompts, if when I run this, I typically don't run it for everyone. I want to have it prompt me, maybe by customer. Maybe I just want to run it for one particular customer. You can have it set to do a prompt, and when you go to run the report, it'll stop and give you the option to put in your customer ID. Now, little tip for you, that's not going to show up when you do the run from within the report writing wizard that I'm in right now. You will see it when you're out at your report menu and you run the report. So in order to test those prompts, you'll have to save this, go run it under the report center, and you'll see those prompts come up. Now, keep in mind, as I've progressed through this report, I'm looking at setting this report up. And at any given time, if I conclude that I haven't put something in that I need, I can always go right back to where I was before and go grab a column or change a calculation, change my sort orders or my totals. So you can always toggle back and forth, either using your back arrow, it won't forget anything that you selected on that page, or you can pull your menu down and pick from your menu choices to go to one spot in the report and literally jump back and forth between these various steps to build your report. So let's go ahead. Here I have a prompt to, if I want to enable sorts on my memorized, and we're going to talk about memorized reports in just a minute. And here I come to the place where I can give it a name. So I'm going to call this Jim's AR aging report. Now the product is actually smart enough to know that I was working in a table that had to do with accounts receivable. If I want to add this to the menu, which basically means I'm going to let everyone see it versus just myself, I would check that box to add the menu, and it's going to default to the accounts receivable module where it's going to be available from. I could change it to something else if I wanted. It's just a matter of what module it's going to display under. And I could give it a further description if I want. If at some point I want to take this offline, I can just set it to inactive and it won't display. So I'm going to leave that active, and I'm going to go ahead. I have no more right arrows, and I'm going to say save. So once that saves, that's available to run here in the report center or in the custom report area, but it also is going to display over in our reports. One of the things that I like to do when I'm doing reports is I like to see it and tweak it. Run it again, tweak it. What I do to save myself some time going back and forth between these two different screens is I'll open up an additional tab here in Intacct. I'm using Chrome. So if I say right click and I say duplicate, now I've got an extra tab available, and I might have the custom report writer available in one tab right here. And then I'm going to run my report through the report center in another tab, and I can toggle back and forth and see how that report looks while I'm going in and changing it. So I'm going to just go ahead and go over to my report center around here somewhere. There we go. And you can see that we've got Jim's AR aging report. So if I click on that, notice I have those built-in parameters. I can toggle back and forth between what my report date is based on. I can set my currencies. There's that show detail we talked about, so I could turn that off if I wanted. And then when I run this report by clicking on view, all right, so we need a currency. Let's do US. There we go. So what we see here on the report is it's grouped by customer and the document number. You can see this one has a lot of detail. So there's my customer 1000 document invoice 62 and my line detail scrolling all the way down there. Really, really big document. Okay, we can toggle these closed if we wanted, and it rolls them all up. We can toggle it so we can go down and see. Here in this particular case, we see our GL number, we see our title, our posting dates are available. There's our agings that we're talking about, and the running total for the report. Now, what I was referring to was maybe I say to myself, oh, I don't use project, so I'm going to take project out. I'm going to go back over to my platform services, and I'm going to take that out because it's just not useful for me. And I'm going to leave that report up in the other window. It's called Jim's. Go find that. And I want to go to my next screen that shows me my fields. And I'm just going to find project ID. So I can just uncheck that and say save. And I'll stay right here because I might be making some other changes. Now, you can save yourself some time by flipping over to that other tab and just click view. And if the gods are smiling on you, that's taking out that project ID. And now your report is starting to look like you want it to. This is a big report. There we go. So our project ID is out. So if you toggle back and forth between your report writer and the view that and the report that you're creating, you can customize those kind of on the fly. So that's a walkthrough of that. And let's go back and change this a little bit. One of the things we talked about was showing those details. So let's see what this looks like with no details. There you go. Okay. So other things that you can do here, they're really useful. Most times when you're running a report, someone wants the report. So you have the ability right here to email the report. If you use dashboards, you can easily add any report in Intacct to a dashboard while you're in the report by just saying add the dashboard. So when I do that, it wants to know where do I want to put it, what name do I want to give this report, any further description, do I want it public so other people can see it on my dashboard and I can say, okay, now it's on my dashboard. That's probably the easiest way to get any report in Intacct on your dashboard is just go run the report, hit your dashboard button, save you some time. Other things you have is the capability to memorize the report. So when you run that, if you say, oh, I've got certain settings that I like to do, maybe I've got some agings buckets I want to display or as of date, you now have the ability to memorize that. So let's just go run one of those again. So I'm going to take that report and I'm going to run it again. And if I set this, maybe this is for a year-end report that I want to save for the auditors, and I might run it again after we make some changes. I can go in here, and if I memorize it, I can give it a name, and I can say Jim's AR aging as of one 1/7. Here we go. And of course, some of you probably know what's really nice about all of Intacct's reports is that you can go back even after you've closed the year and have put additional information in subsequent to that, that the aging reports actually give you a historical aging. So if you forgot to run a report for the auditor, you need to run one for year end, you can do that, just set your posting date, you're all set. So this will add this to my report center and it'll be available as a memorized report. Whatever settings I put in there, the parameters I can rerun it. It'll remember those parameters. Really nice for reports that you run at month end where a lot of the settings are the same over and over and over. That's why you might want to do memorize reports. And of course, you know, we have the ability to export out to Excel, HTML. You have the ability to set this report up so that you can run it on a schedule. So maybe it's part of your closing checklist. You can set it up on a schedule as well. So that's the AR aging. The accounts payable aging is exactly the same. It's the mirror image of the AR aging report, except it's the vendor information instead of the customer information. So at this point, I'd like to open up the phones to see if anyone has any questions, if I can help further with this.
Yeah, Jim, thanks for that. I do have one question on what you were just explaining. Is it really historical, or like, can you elaborate on what you had just said about the historical part?
Okay, so what I'm referring to is for most people who get audited, the auditors are going to come in and they're going to want reports. Let's say your fiscal year end is December 31st. They're going to want you to have an aged accounts receivable as of December 31st, okay? And they're going to go back and they're going to test against that document. A lot of accounting systems, if you forgot to run it and now you've done accounting activity for January, February, March, April, you can't run it because now you have accounting transactions in since December 31st. Intacct is smart enough that if you set the aging date or the run date, say for instance GL post date 12/31, it will be aged as if you had actually run it on that day. So it's a really nice feature when it comes to giving the auditors reports. If you forgot to run it, you don't have to worry. You can go run it anytime you want, and it will report correctly as of date, December 31st in this case.
Okay, hopefully that answered the question. Oh, okay, I do have a follow-up question on that. If an invoice is paid, will it still show as open and unpaid?
Yes, in fact, the report, that's one of the filters that you can run is, let's go ahead
and if anybody else has any questions, please feel free to type them up and we'll go over them here.
Let me go get my report center. I'm using a new UI and I'm still a little rusty on it. One of the filters that I talked about was the ability to filter out. Here we go. Okay. To filter out the documents that have a zero balance. So here, see if we have any in here that we could use as an example. Okay, zero. This one, I'm looking for one that might have a zero balance. These all have a balance. Okay, so good question. So let's talk about what is available to get that if you're looking for a zero balance amount. Is there are two other reports available in the system that are slightly different than the AR aging report. Let me bring that up, and that will also provide the ability to print it if you're looking for transactions that have a zero balance. Let me just go over and bring up platform services and point to that. So if we go in and we start a new report, and we choose customer aging, at the start of the webinar, I made reference to some other reports. So we have an AR aging header report here that gives the transactions with a zero balance. In fact, I saved a copy of that in case anyone wanted to see it. So how about if I run that just to give you a look at what that report looks like. That's this report right here. That's called the AR header report. And that one will in fact display documents that have a zero balance. I'm kind of curious from the audience why you would look for a zero balance documents, but this one will do that for you. So you see here, these have a amount due. This is sorted by customer, and here we see the amount due. So if I was doing this, unless I wanted to see them, I would probably filter out where amount due equals zero, but this could provide that kind of information.
Okay. Hopefully that helped a little bit. And I just wanted to let everybody know, again, keeping questions open, but just so you know, I always emphasize this, these are for you, our customers. So if anybody ever has any ideas or really wants to see a demonstration of a certain thing inside of Sage Intacct, just let us know and we'll make sure to make that as one of our webinars, because like I said, this is for you. And I also wanted to mention that in May, since the new Sage Intacct quarterly release is coming out, I believe mid-May, we'll be sending out an email as a reminder, but our webinar will be on that new release and the update and what's going to be featured inside of that. So we don't have an exact date yet just because of the holiday at the end of May. So we're going to finalize a date and then should keep everybody updated through the newsletter, our website, and just some emails. So stay tuned for that. Jim, I don't see any more questions.
Also wanted to share, just as a reminder to people, that the new report writer is expected to be out later this year. They have been teasing us with it for some time now, but the word at the latest business conference was that it will be out this year, and we're excited to see that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I don't see any more questions. Nothing has come in. So I think we're good. Thanks everybody for joining us today, and let us know if we can do anything else for you. All right. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks. Bye now.